Ataraxis makes business at its best possible each week. The company takes care of the day-to-day work of HR, benefits, and payroll so a business owner can focus on growing business. Steve Cilley with Ataraxis joins us right now, and thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're talking about the concept. We're focusing today on honoring promises, and as you work with business owners and managers on these HR issues, how do you coach them through specifically honoring promises when it comes to employees?
You know, the first thing I think we've talked about before, documentation. You got to document it. If you tell an employee something and make them a promise, make sure you write it down and document it so that they understand what it is and that you understand what it is. Because if you don't, chances are they're going to remember it differently than you do. And then that's how disappointment and frustration begins and morale starts going down from there.
And when you talk about documenting, is that an email that you type up, send out?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be official, just something that puts it all down on paper somewhere where you both have it and both can remember it. It can go in their file, it could do anything else like that. You know, the next thing too, once you do that documentation, is follow through. Too many times, a lot of times we make promises to people because we are pacifying them or just trying to get something done and make them feel better. But if you're going to make a promise to somebody, make sure that you do that, because if you don't do that, they're not going to believe you after a while when you tell them something.
And it doesn't take many of those cases to really break a lot of trust.
Not at all. And consistency is the last one. Make sure your management team is all on the same page with what you tell people, because if they start breaking down and hearing different stories, employer-employee relationship is a lot like parent-child relationship. If they think there's a weakness, they're going to exploit it, and then they don't believe anybody.
Okay, so the communication aspect across the management spectrum and along with the employee is
Right.
so crucial. So on the face of it, we all know the importance of modeling good behavior. Honoring promises would be the behavior you want to model. But let's talk about this idea of when we model that behavior of honoring promises with the employee, how that carries through to the employee-customer relationship.
It goes back to what we just talked about. If we do all those things and you're treating your employees with respect, and you're making an environment where they feel good about it and they understand that they're respected and their promises are kept that are made to them, they're going to feel good about the company, the leadership, and the company's mission. And when they feel good about that, when they're dealing with customers, they're going to want to make sure that the customer has the same feeling about the company that they have about the company. And if that's how they feel, then they're going to make sure it goes down to the customer. And if the customer's not happy, they're going to do things to make them feel the same way about the company that they do.
Now, I can imagine that the folks watching the show, they've either been in that employee position where there's been a broken promise, or that could be a manager or a business owner saying, wow, I've got some broken promises in the past. How do you go about mending the fences in those situations where there's been a broken promise, especially from a manager's perspective?
Start over.
Okay.
Just say, you know what, I made a mistake.
Own up to it first.
Own up to it. Figure out what the problem was, where it went wrong, and then formulate a plan to go forward to make sure that you're putting it in place so that everybody understands it. And then get everybody together, apologize again, and say, we made a mistake, this is what we're going to do to make it better, and this is how we're going to do it going forward. Implement the plan, make sure everybody understands what it is, and then give them updates. You probably have to communicate more with them at that point in time on the updates of the plan and what you're doing to make sure that it follows through. But you also have to understand it takes a lot of humility and it takes a lot of time.
All right, Steve Cilley, Ataraxis, the website?
Ataraxispeo.com.
You are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis.